So what I did, I took the value chain model and said, well, we used to create value through research and development, manufacturing, marketing, HR, finance, etc., etc. But if we're spending so much time in conversation and we're doing it to create value, then surely there must be some sort of chain that explains how value is created in conversation. So I kind of started playing with it with the idea of, well, let's look at the primary elements of conversation and then look at the supporting ones. What are the things we need in place as an organization to make sure these rich conversations can happen? The first thing that tends to be there's a situation and some sort of question comes up. And many people, there's a theme, Neil, what was his name? Neil, the other guy that's giving the talk this afternoon? Witten, yes. Talking a lot about leadership, etc., etc. And some would say leadership today is literally not necessarily having the answers, but asking the right questions and getting the right people in the room to try and solve them. So the question is key. What are we going to discuss? Then we can look at what sort of context do we need to have a particular question addressed. As I said, depending on whether people are standing up, whether this room is full, the conversation we can have is different. And if I just do the same presentation as I was going to do if it was half full and there was lots of space, it wouldn't work. How attuned are we whether we have the right context? And that can be a physical context and an emotional context. If there's 200 layoffs been announced the day before, it's hard to go in and do a great brainstorming creativity type workshop the next day. People are not there, or you've got to somehow get them there before you can start that conversation. The participants and process, I'm going to show you a few different processes we can use depending on the question and what sort of answer we want at the end of the day. The host, who should host the meeting? Who should chair the meeting? Who's the best at it? Or is it always the person who's highest up in the hierarchy, or the person in charge of the PMO, or whatever it happens to be? Who's the best? And the speech acts, which I'll explain in a few minutes. Commitment for action. Somebody's going to do something. There's a question, we've gone through a process, we're taking a decision. And probably this is becoming the big source of competitive advantage. Once we've taken a decision in Mumbai, how can we make sure that information, that knowledge gets back to Toronto or Montreal? Or are we going to duplicate that same conversation here? Managing intellectual capital is a huge challenge in a knowledge-based business. How do we share it, get it to the right people at the right moment so they can use it? It's not easy. And then we can have the supporting infrastructure, the organizational culture. Certain organizations, certain conversations will not take place. They are taboo. And we probably all know some of the topics that we know should be discussed in our organizations or in our project teams, but we're not going to. And there's risks involved there. And again, the challenge sometimes is to how do we get it on the table, create a context so we can talk about those sort of things? Because they're hurting the team, they're hurting the results, but my God, it's going to be a powerful conversation when we have it. So we'll avoid it. Try and skirt round it. Strong, shallow, and criminal, again, I'll explain in a few minutes. IT systems, again, there's amazing IT available at the moment to facilitate conversations around the globe. Are we using it? Do we have the right access to it? Can we afford not to be using it? And again, the physical spaces. What types of physical spaces do we need for the conversations that we want to have? So, the idea is, during any particular meeting, various steps will add value. Some may destroy value. Destroying value. How can I destroy value in a conversation? Well, maybe there's a conversation that's going along quite well, and then somebody cracks a joke in a meeting. Sometimes it works, right? Because there's tension in the air, it's got a bit difficult. The right joke at the right moment, it adds value because it gets rid of that, and everybody can breathe again, have a smile, and then we can move on. Other times, when you're actually moving towards a decision, and then some idiot cracks a joke, and the energy changes. It's gone. And we're going, oh, God. Same joke, same person, wrong moment, right? And how aware of we of our role in conversations, whether we're silent, whether we're talking, whether we're asking questions, etc. So the challenge is, time in a meeting is cost. So we're trying to maximize the value of that conversation and have it at the minimum cost. That's the time and the number of people in the room. Why have we got 20 people in a room when we can have that conversation with 10 and get to the same value, right? We've doubled our productivity. We don't really see it like that, but that's how we can view it. So maximizing value, minimizing cost. The name of the game in terms of moving projects along. So, powerful conversations. Let's jump back to that. How often do I find myself, just to be polite, saying things I don't mean? Polite in a very broad sense, right? We're sitting in a meeting. We know what we're supposed to say, what people want to hear. Do we take the risk in terms of being the one who said, hold on a minute? Or do we just go along with it? It's easier.